I'm Bethany Anderson of Bethany Heals, and if life's been lifing lately, then you found me just in time. This is a pause, a permission slip to just be. And before we begin, let me remind you, your healing isn't on a timeline. Around here, we don't hustle our healing, we honor it. Trust that your intuition brought you here for a reason. So let's drop into our next archive episode.
Hello, loves, and welcome to a bonus episode here on Life Be Life.ing. I have had a few moments over the past few weeks of seeing some things on social media, listening to some things that have just really been grinding my gears. So today is an episode of hot takes. I just need to get this out of my system, and hopefully we all learn something today about our intuition, about trusting ourselves, and about the information that's out there and how to discern what is accurate and what we maybe need to do some research on. I'm outside today. I mean, honestly, it's such a beautiful day. So if you do hear some background noises, that's why I'm outside. Life is life out here. So let's kind of hop right into it because I need to talk about a few things that have been circulating lately. And the first one is this concept of the October theory. So I don't know if you've seen this in just different content on social media that's been coming out, but people are talking about this collective shift that happens in between September and October, right? It's like, oh my gosh, they've discovered something completely cosmic and out of this world. But this is so irritating to me because they're talking about how it's a time to turn within and to connect with yourself. And they may drop a note about, April theory, where in astrology, April is considered the new year, which is correct. But this October theory, this April theory isn't anything new. It's literally nature doing what it's always done. We're talking about the autumn equinox, the fall equinox, and the spring equinox. So, why are we watering down ancient wisdom, the ancient wisdom of our bodies? Why are we watering down nature into something that's palatable? Because the autumnal equinox, it's biology, it's energy, it's the earth doing what it's always done. It's shifting. So, of course, we are shifting with these seasons. And it's so frustrating that people are acting like they're inventing this seasonal awareness when it's just ancient wisdom that I think we've forgotten, that we've disconnected ourselves from. This isn't anything new, right? And I just really am not happy with how the way that we should be living and experiencing our life is being packaged and tied up in a pretty little bow as something like these theories. They're not theories, they're lived experiences, right? They're experiences that we can come back to on our own without it needing to be some type of concept. It's a watered down, rebranded version of what astrology, the equinox, and nature have always shown us. And so when you hear this October theory, this April theory floating around, please remind yourself that we're talking about some of the most powerful seasonal shifts that we experience throughout our lives every single year. It is so much deeper than that. And it is so layered to how this shows up in our lives. So, that's where I'm at with October theory and why it's just honestly a bunch of BS that I think that we need to kind of check ourselves with when it comes to what's showing up out there in social media. I think we need to remember that we're really meant during these seasonal shifts to slow down, to release, and to recalibrate, right? We're meant to reflect and to look upon the past 6 months of our lives. looking at the decisions that we've made, looking at the experiences that we've had. How did these shape us? These are important moments that we need to tap into in general, not just in theory. We need to stop making this some type of trend and bring it back to being a natural process of our lives, right? This is about bringing back a collective remembering of how we're supposed to live. And I think the issue with it for me is it's not about bringing awareness to the seasonal changes that we have. It's just the performance of it. Honestly, it's the packaging of it. We don't need a theory of something that's been written in our DNA since the beginning of time. So, I don't know, that's just some food for thought. I think that there's this shadow side to modern spirituality that tends to take something that's really ancient and turns it into content. And how can we shift away from that? How can we step away from that? Bring it back down to basics, right? Simplify. We don't need to overcomplicate these natural ways of living and of being. It's sad because it's almost like we can't just feel anymore. It's like we have to label it, we have to trend it, we have to monetize it. I think this really, if anything, just reflects our like collective disconnection from nature, right? And embodying our connection with nature. And sometimes people just think they've had this wild revelation, and really it's just our bodies syncing with the earth, right? Animals do it every season. The wintertime comes, the bears are hibernating, the squirrels are packing their acorns for the winter. It's a biological response and it's a spiritual response. And I think we need to honor that so much more than we're currently doing. Our spiritual growth, it was never meant to be branded. It's something that's meant to be lived. And this kind of segues into my other hot take. I was recently driving home from collecting water from a spring. Wait, that sounds wild. Anyways, it's true. I was driving home from spring. I like to collect spring water for my intake, the beautiful minerals and nutrients that we can get from spring water. I'm very grateful and blessed. And so just so happy that I have access to fresh water in this way. And I was driving home. I had like an hour to sit in traffic. And I was just thinking, let me find a podcast to listen to. And I found this podcast that the main focus about it is overthinking. And it talks about these different topics that we tend to overthink on and bringing in just different experts to talk about the specific topic of overthinking that they're focusing on and so we can stop overthinking about these things and focusing on what actually matters. Love this. I love the whole premise of it. You got me. I'm in. And then I saw that there was an episode on intuition. And I was like, oh, okay, perfect. I'm so excited to hear about this. So I press play and I'm listening. And they introduce the guest. It's a journalist who has written a couple of other books that were crime focused books, who wrote a third book or their next book that just came out this year that's about intuition. And I'm like, okay, interesting segue from crime to intuition, but I'm intrigued. Keep going. And they do start with sharing how they grew up in this household that, due to the religious beliefs, intuition was seen as this negative thing and she wanted to learn and figure it out for herself, which I love. I love a queen that wants to do research. But then we start getting into the meat of the topic. And the host asks her, "How do you define intuition?" And she says, and this is what really got me going, that intuition is just pattern recognition. It's just the mind pulling from experiences that it's lived and using this information to make decisions, right? And this definition just threw me for a loop. I wouldn't say it's entirely wrong, but it is so incomplete. I just can't believe that someone had the audacity to reduce intuition to pattern recognition. It's like reducing art to just brushstrokes or music to math. Like, technically, it's true, but you're missing the whole essence. Pattern recognition is survival instinct of the mind. It's not the sacred knowing of your intuition. Our mind recognizes repetition to predict danger, right? And to stay safe. It's built for protection, not for perception. Now, our intuition, on the other hand, it comes from this place of calm awareness. It's like this stillness. It's this present space that exists beyond the mind's noise. And to water down something so profound into this rationalized definition, I honestly felt really disrespected. I got triggered, okay? Because there is so much more to this work. Intuition is something that moves through you. It's not something that you can calculate. It's just not. It's this thing that you can't explain. It's not a conclusion that your brain can reach, but it's a truth that your body feels. It's a knowingness from somewhere outside of yourself. I don't think it's supposed to be logical. It's not always going to make sense. And so I'm continuing listening to this episode because I want to finish the whole thing, right? I want to hear it to the end. I want to hear their thoughts and their perspectives. And she's sharing how she read some books on spirituality, but also spoke with a lot of neuroscientists about intuition and how they just laughed about really reducing it down to just another part of the mind. And of course they're going to. It's science. That's their whole job, is to use their mind to analyze and to bring answers and to make conclusions, to make sense of something that is unfamiliar or unknown. But let me tell you a little bit about intuition. If intuition is just something of the mind, how have I had sessions with clients where I am telling them deep personal stories about their lives, about themselves, specific conversations that they've had with people in their life? And these are clients sometimes that I've never met, that I've never had a conversation with. I don't look up my clients ahead of time. How can you explain me being able to use my intuition to read their energy, to share what's coming up, if that's just something of the mind? Make it make sense. You can't. Our intuition is just, it's not just, our intuition is an ability. It's an ability that we all have. It is a muscle that we strengthen. It is a skill that we learn to hone over time through dedication and through devotion to the self, to learning about the self. I've had clients where I'm healing a challenging relationship that they're going through, that they're experiencing with a loved one, with a partner, with a friend, and using my intuition to read the energy of their relationship. I do the work, I heal what's coming up. And they'll come back to me and say, Bethany, you won't believe this. I got a random phone call from my estranged parent. I got a random phone call from my friend of them apologizing to me, saying that they didn't know why, but they just felt the need to say this thing to me. That isn't something that you can rationalize. It just isn't. That is intuition. It's an energy. It's something that is so deep within us. So let's dig into this a little bit more, because I've had clients ask me in the past, like, how do I trust my intuition when I've made wrong decisions in the past? I get it. I've been there. I thought that that was my intuition guiding me in the wrong way. But that wasn't your intuition that led you wrong. That was your mind. Because the mind, essentially, it's the analyzer, right? And our mind loves to masquerade as our intuition. It thinks it knows best always. Our mind is those repetitive thoughts, the overthinking, the what ifs. That's your analyzer trying to keep control of you, to keep you safe, right? To protect you. But your intuition is never going to over explain to you. It might just speak once, but it speaks clearly. It doesn't speak with urgency. And when you get stuck in your head in these mental loops and these repetitive thoughts and these cyclical patterns, what you're doing is you're confusing these mental loops with your inner wisdom, with your truth. I'm so happy I took notes because I would go off on a tangent if I didn't have these notes in front of me right now. There's just so much to talk about with this. But if there's one way I can bring this down into something that makes sense, pattern recognition belongs to your mind's survival system, okay? Intuition belongs to your soul's navigation system. They both have their place, but they are not the same. When you're connecting to your intuition, you have to learn how to tune out all of this outside noise, okay? You have to look at the opinions, the beliefs, the patterns, the pictures that we've picked up throughout our life that you've absorbed from others. And you have to clear it out. You have to make room for your intuition to speak. And, learning the language of your intuition and how it speaks to you is going to be different for everyone, right? So your intuition, it can show up in so many different ways. It's not this one size fits all formula. They're going to speak through different senses depending on you. So you might feel it as a physical sensation in your body, right? Your heart beats a little faster. You feel it in your belly. Your throat constricts. You might hear words or sounds. You might see pictures or images or symbols or see numbers. You might just have a knowingness of what comes up for you. You just know. That is the language of your intuition. There's a place for the mind and there's a place for the intuition. Your higher self, this beautiful, energetic, timeless soul, this core of you that has lived through so many lifetimes, that is what holds your intuitive wisdom. That is what transcends logic. And that is what is guiding you towards places that are unfamiliar and that are unknown. And a lot of the times just feels right. This consciousness has lived so many lifetimes. Our souls are eternal. Where do you think you're pulling all of this wisdom from? Time is honestly a man-made concept. Space and time aren't a thing. The future, the past, the present are all happening at once. And we're pulling information from all of these spaces and places and bringing it into this present moment that you are living right now. That is your intuition. That is what's guiding you. It can't be measured. It can't be explained. And it can't be proven. I mean, it can be proven. If you really want to go down the rabbit hole, it can be proven. Have you heard of the telepathy tapes? But to really connect with this space, you have to create stillness within your life. You have to create the space to hear. I feel like our logic is here to interpret, but our intuition is what's here to lead us. And unless you've truly, truly lived this work, breathed this work, integrated it into your day-to-day life, until this is a true devotion of the self, where you have studied and learned and experienced this work, you should not be speaking on it as an expert. You can share your perspective, but I don't want to hear it that this is the end all be all answer. I just feel like there are so many other spiritual leaders and teachers that are true experts in the realm of intuition that could speak to this topic, that do speak to this topic, that could have been so much more aligned and had so much more of an impact than what was given. I just see it as a missed opportunity, and that's a shame. I feel like that we've confused knowing the language of intuition with living the truth of it. This is one of my pillars in my business and in my life is integration. It's so important and it's so necessary because you can study and read and do all of the things, but if you're not living it truly in your life, then what's it all for? I feel like we're just turning these deep lived truths into catchy sound bites and commercialized language. And that's not what I'm here to teach you. That's not what your soul wants to experience or learn. Integration is what makes this wisdom real. Otherwise, it's just information. Everything else is just theory, right? Wrong. I've had enough of theory. I'm done. And I think ultimately, with October theory, with this intuition and this perspective that was shared, these reflections are just the same human impulse. And that human impulse is the need to control uncertainty. It's this need to feel safe again. October theory is this way to narrate change so it feels safer. Pattern based intuition is our way of explaining mystery so it feels rational. So, no, it's not October theory. It's not a trend. It's nature. You don't need to intellectualize what your soul already knows. So, my invitation for you is, instead of tuning into the algorithms and into all of the hubbub on social media, tune back into yourself. Tune back into the earth. Go touch a tree. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't mean to yell. And if there's one thing that I can close this with, let's say that intuition is this river, right? This river that flows through the crevices and hills of a mountain. And pattern recognition is the banks of that river, holding its form. Both are useful, they both have their place. But one of those is meant to move, it's meant to flow, it's meant to mold. Listen to your intuition. Listen to that river of wisdom and of knowledge that's within you. Let that guide you. So, thanks for listening to my hot take. I hope you've enjoyed this TED Talk. I just wanted to put this out into the world to consider intuition from a different perspective, because there's a lot of fluff out there, there's a lot of noise. But one thing that you have is free will to learn and to experience and to heal from teachers and leaders and guides that truly, truly, truly have lived and integrated and experienced this work in a way that can't be watered down into some rational explanation. We have to live this truth. We have to experience it daily. So stay open, keep doing your research, and I'll see you in the next episode.